Welcome back. China says trade talks with the United States, well, they're important, but other countries need to get involved to reach a comprehensive solution. The Chinese delegation, the World Trade Organization, said in a statement today, and I'm quoting, "We need to find the way out," unquote. Beijing and the Trump administration agreed to a 90-day semi-truce that lowered tariffs between the two countries earlier, lowered them from what were essentially embargo-level tariff rates. But that doesn't mean that they're effectively low. More on that with our guest, Andrew Polk. He joins me now. He's a partner at Trivium China, a Beijing-based research firm. It's great to have you with us. Thanks for joining us. It's interesting to me that when the 90-day cooling-off period was announced, the United States, through the Trump administration, kept what is effectively a 31% tariff rate on China. And the equity markets were like, yay, that's normal. Andrew, remind my audience, that's not normal.
That's not normal at all, and I like the way you put it. This is a semi-truce. It's not a full truce. It's not an agreement. It's a temporary de-escalation. And not only are tariffs still at 30% from the U.S. onto China, that's just the increase so far this year. We had earlier tariffs also put on. So the effective tariff rate on Chinese goods into the U.S. is actually closer to 50%.
And have consumers begun to feel that yet?
They have not. So they've felt the pain from, the first Trump administration tariffs. We've already seen that kind of go through. We've seen inflation under the Biden administration. That partly played into that. But we really have not seen these prices filter into, the prices at retail stores, because retail stores had inventories of all these goods, and we have not seen the drawdown of those inventories, and so the pain is not yet.
Give my audience a perspective on how the Chinese view all this. And President Trump wants to do all this with President Xi. Chinese don't approach it that way.
That's right. I mean, the Chinese don't want this trade war. They want to de-escalate. But part of the reason that it took them so long to come to the table is, like many other countries, they are unclear exactly what the ask is from the White House. Does Donald Trump want them to do something on fentanyl precursors? Does he want them to lower the trade surplus? Does he want them to invest more in the U.S.? Does he want them to take a more active role in Russia-Ukraine negotiations? So
they don't know.
They don't know, and so they don't want to be negotiating against themselves ahead of actual talks with the White House. So they've been very slow to come to the table. And also, as we know, Donald Trump wants to do the negotiations directly with Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping does not want to put himself in that situation. They saw what happened in the Oval Office with the meeting with Vladimir Zelensky. The Chinese side is not going to put Xi Jinping in a place to be embarrassed by that, trying to negotiate, let alone in public, but even leader-to-leader level before some of this is worked out at the lower working level.
And Andrew, something is interesting is happening in the region. As this goes on, unresolved, China's traveling around saying, we want to be a better trade partner, right?
That's right.
Looking out for its economic interests to try to fill this vacuum.
They're doing that to fill the vacuum. They're doing that partially to sort of as a rhetorical device to say the U.S. is, unreliable. We're the reliable partner here. Come to our side, cozy up to us to the extent you can. But they also are trying to offset some of the pain of the tariffs from the U.S. by sending more of their goods to other Asian countries, to Europe. And so a lot of that is basically trade diplomacy. The problem for China becomes if all the goods that were going to go to the U.S. start to deluge other markets, then those other trading partners may not buy into that. We're the stable trading partner because all of a sudden they're seeing an influx of Chinese goods.
And look, there are and have been significant issues with Chinese theft of American intellectual property. The ownership requirements, strenuous. American companies would argue onerous ownership requirements to operate in China. Currency manipulation. These are real issues that lots of American administrations, Democratic and Republican, have tried to resolve with China. And they keep pushing us back, basically fronting us off.
That's right. And there's definitely a perspective out there that says, we didn't start the trade war with China. The trade war with China was started a long time ago by all these actions that they've taken, and we're just now responding. In many people's eyes, 10 years, 20 years too late. That's obviously not how the Chinese view it. I think, ironically, though, the overarching goal of American administrations for U.S. businesses was to push back against the Chinese to get more access in China for American businesses. And that's clearly not what the Trump administration wants, which brings you back to the point of what actually is the goal of the tariffs, and how can China find a way to negotiate towards that goal with the Trump administration.
One last thing before I let you go. For China and every other trading partner, they're trying to figure out, are these tariffs permanent or a negotiating mechanism? And nobody can quite figure that out. Right?
That's right. I think for the Chinese, they, having been through a trade war with the U.S. before, were one of the few countries that saw all this coming, right? They've seen this playbook and have prepared. But their view is, at least whatever happens with the tariffs, the relationship between the U.S. and China is going to, get worse and worse over time. So they don't think this is a short-term development at all.
Andrew Polk, great to have you at the desk. I appreciate it very much.